Hi gang, Rob here. It is the afternoon of 28 January 2024. Coming to you today with a video. I don't make too many like this. And it's pertinent to my Thursday night knife sales. And I made a couple of videos years ago when I started doing these weekly knife sales. One applied to buyers in the sale and explained why I do things in a sort of non-traditional fashion when it comes to selling knives, and how everything works and why. The other video was called FAQs for Consignors, and that was a video that was informational for people who want to use my weekly knife sale to consign their knives and have me sell them for them. And frankly, those are pretty old videos, and over the years I've kind of had a need to update you or share with you how that's all going. And my original design continues to be validated, but there's a couple things that have happened lately, that actually just in the last few days, that I want to use as examples to explain why I really haven't changed that model much over the years. And the title to this video will probably be something like, "Some business is too expensive to keep." And this is a concept that I learned back in my car dealership days, and I will tell you a story to start off about that. I had been selling cars for a couple of decades, and I was learning this lesson that some people's business is just too expensive to keep. And it culminated with this scenario. We had a customer who was part of our buy here, pay here program, and our dealership was rare in that we did both buy here, pay here and conventional retail financing and selling. But they had been a buy here, pay here customer, and then we sort of helped them get their credit situation squared away, and they bought one or two cars from us retail, and they stumbled again, and they were back asking for help in our buy here, pay here capacity. And we sold them a car, and I think it was a Blazer or a Jimmy, been a while ago. And the wife, she was a very, very self-important person. And I think she kind of thought we didn't understand how important she was. And, when you're buying a buy here, pay here car, generally, at least in our model, there might have been some cosmetic or luxury option things that may or may not have been working right. And we tried to make sure the cars were mechanically sound and would serve the customer well, but we didn't necessarily spend money on superfluous things. Well, about a week after she had the car, she took it to our service department, which was at another location from where I was. And she called me with a list about $700 worth of stuff that she felt like should have been correct on the car before she bought it, even though she and her husband drove it over a weekend before they bought it. And probably knew all these things. And I explained to her that those weren't things that we were going to fix, and she had a mechanically sound car. And she immediately called the owner because she had known him before she knew me. And so I kind of counted down in my head, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the phone rings, and it's my boss. And I told him I'd been waiting for his call, and he told me the phone call he got, and he understood why I gave her the decision that I did. And I said, "Ron, I'd like to try something here. I'd like to, because let's face it, these people, although they've bought more than one car from us, they have never been fun. And they've always cost us money after the sale. And this is kind of the latest and biggest example of that." And so what I'd like to do is, I would like to call her, and I would like to give her the great news that we're going to go ahead and take care of everything on the list that service gave her. And we're going to do it at our expense. And the only thing that we require of her is that she never buy another car from us again. And Ron immediately saw where I was going, and he said, "Yeah, let's do that." We'd never done that before. And I made that call, and I told her, and I got to admit, I was kind of setting her up, you know. I told her how I was going to take care of all this stuff, and at the end I said, there's just one thing, and I told her that she's never to buy another car from us again. And she was shocked, taken aback, and she asked why, and I said, because every time we do, we have this same conversation, and it's just not worth it. We spend as much on you in the first 2 weeks after you own a car as the profit we made, sometimes more, and it's just not worth it. Well, I've had a couple of those incidents happen lately, one on the consignment side and one on the buyer side of my weekly knife sale. So I have a customer who is a buyer. He is a regular buyer and a long-term buyer, but not a high-volume buyer. And I don't know, 3 or 4 purchases ago, he paid via PayPal goods or services, and he did that a couple times, and I kind of overlooked it because we have sort of a long relationship. And those of you who are weekly attenders of the knife sale know that I do things by PayPal friends or family. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I will link in the description my primer for buyers video, which explains in detail why I do things that way. I'll hit the high points for you. First of all, that 3.5% would become 7%, that would be added to every knife in PayPal goods or services, because my buyer would pay me that way, and I would have to pay my seller that way, so they get 3.5% fees. So I've tried to eliminate that from the equation. The other thing is that that enters PayPal as the arbiter of my sale, and my sale is set up so that I'm the arbiter. I inspect the knives before I do the video. My customers are explicitly encouraged to ask any questions they have about condition if they can't tell from the video or my description before they commit to purchase. And people trust me to be selling them what I say I'm selling them. So we don't need the middleman of PayPal. Let's face it. In collectible knives, the most common reason people want to return an item is buyer's remorse. And I don't want that part of our equation. And I explain that in the primer for buyers video. The other thing is, I don't like to be part of collectible knives being bought on credit cards, because I think it's a horrible idea. I think it's an irresponsible way to collect knives. And if you don't have the cash, you should not be buying these, let's face it, emotional and elective purchases. If your personal finances are such that you don't have an extra $200 laying around to buy a Sprint Run Spyderco Paramilitary 2, then you shouldn't have a $200 Spyderco Sprint Run Paramilitary 2. And in order to use friends or family, you either have to have money in your PayPal account or a verified checking account attached. And that's the way I like to keep it. Long story short, or shorter, it comes to light, I don't know, a couple weeks ago that this customer is using a PayPal credit card. And the reason he's using goods or services is because if you try to use friends or family with a PayPal credit card, it treats it like a cash advance. So you pay a pretty exorbitant fee to do that, which he's trying to avoid. And he's explaining all this to me. And the last knife before last week that he purchased was friends or family somehow. This week he purchased one, goods or services, and he needed to keep it that way. And so I had him add the appropriate amount of money to do that. But since I am not a goods or services PayPal merchant, PayPal decided to hold my money until the knife is delivered. Well, so that's kind of the last straw. I can't really make exceptions because I've already paid my seller. So the lesson learned is I came up with a design of how to do this sale 7-8 years ago. It always works. And when I make exceptions, I usually regret it. I'm regretting that one. And, you know, I informed this customer that this would be the last time I'm doing that, and he kind of got hot a little bit. He, you know, doesn't understand why I can't do that, and I can't do that. So part of the reason for making this video is for you to know there will be no more exceptions for goods or services payments buying my knives until further notice. And I know there's some of you who are international, that's the only way you can pay. I'm sorry. Those are one or two people, and I just can't do it anymore. And if I tried to detail for you the amount of time I spent on this one transaction and trying to figure out what PayPal was doing and communicating with the customer, trust me, it was well not worth the commission I made on that knife. So it's just business. So the second one I want to talk about is interesting, and this is a guy who has been in contact with me sporadically over the years, and I've sold a very few knives for him, and it's always a difficult discussion every time he wants to send me something. He thinks I try to get him to sell stuff too cheaply. He thinks, he made a comment once about, well, if I send you stuff this time, you're not going to slash the price 2 days later like you did last time. Well, yes, I am. And I tried to get this guy to understand how my sale is set up from the consignor's perspective, right? And I will link that video in the description underneath this one as well. The number one thing a consignor needs to know if you're going to sell me a knife is price it to sell. Price it to sell. We're not going to ask eBay prices or knives won't sell. And it's my sale is not an auction, but it sort of has a dynamic like an auto auction has. Quick sales beget quick sales. If a guy tunes into my knife sale at 9:30 on a Thursday night, and there are 30 items running, and by 9:30 there are only 2 of them sold, what's the impression in his mind? Oh, the prices are too high. If a guy tunes in at 9:30 and there are 30 knives in the sale, and at 9:30 16 of them are sold, he knows there's some deals. He better get the lead out, and next week he better be ready to go at 9 o'clock if he wants to get the good stuff. If I have consignors who are sending me stuff and they're pricing them at retail, used, plus my commission, plus postage, hoping I can move them, I have no interest in that business. None. So let me tell you about a conversation I had by text this morning. Yeah. Hey, Rob, I think I want to either sell my Holt Haptic or Morpheus. I think I can make money back by adding 10% to the table price. One was $871, the other was $925. You think it would go quick like the Shirogorov that I recently sold? So I do a little quick pricing research. eBay sold listings, and I have kind of a formula I use. I never search current listings on eBay, only sold listings, and then I sort of deduct from those accordingly based on my market if I'm given pricing advice. So here's what I wrote. 2 pre-owned haptics have sold on eBay recently, but 0 Morpheuses. The haptics sold for a buy it now price of $849 shipped, and a best offer accepted less than $650 shipped. Given the normal difference in my market from eBay, I would price the haptic at about $700. I'm probably not the right reseller for those knives at over table price. I got a response. Yeah, I hate to take a loss on those. You sure? Because I've seen them at $1,000 plus on NAF sale and eBay. I think maybe someone got a sweetheart deal, or possibly it was slightly used. I responded, I only search sold listings, never current listings. It doesn't matter what price someone is fishing for, only what people have actually paid for an item. My sale isn't designed for items priced as high as possible, hoping someone will pay that much. It is for items priced to sell, all caps. Customer responds, I thought I've seen them sell for more, but maybe it was just asking prices. I wrote back, some friendly advice. And this is friendly advice for all of you who are listening. If you're going to dabble in the custom market, be willing to light money on fire. If you can't afford to lose 30 to 50% of the price of a custom knife, buy them to keep or don't buy them. Those losses are far more common than breaking even or making money on knives in that class. He writes back, I hear you. So you're not interested in trying to list it at 10% extra plus shipping costs? I wrote back, not really. Pieces like that are momentum killers in my sale. If guys start to get the impression I'm running cash grab items, they just stop tuning in. He writes back, I try to buy knives that hold value if I buy customs. You never know what the market will do, though. I understand that. Had to try, though, LOL. Never hurts to ask. So he would be the prototype of a cash grabber trying to use me as his agent. I wrote back, the better place to sell that type of knife is in, and this is where it gets interesting, is in a Facebook trading group populated by collectors of a particular brand. They develop a groupthink that translates to inflated values that don't exist outside their bubble, which is kind of true. He writes back, and this is rich. If I'm in a group, I wouldn't sell for more than table. I just don't have a platform to sell knives. I wrote back, so ... You don't want your own name associated with pricing like that in a group of collectors either, right? That kind of says a lot about the idea, don't you think? He writes back, I was just trying to offset the 10% fee, which is my commission fee on a knife of that price range. That's not how it works, guys. My fee doesn't add value to your knife. My fee is for me doing what you're not willing or able to. Convenience and a customer base. And all the risk and communication with customers who sometimes aren't fun to deal with. He writes, he continues, I have overpaid for a couple knives I wanted that I couldn't find. Then he finally kind of responds to what I had written last. Wasn't what I meant, LOL. Well, yes, it was what he meant. So he didn't want to be obviously with his name attached to it, pricing knives at gouging prices in a group where people knew who he was. He would rather be anonymous and have me do that for him. Well, guess what, guys? I don't do that. Because it doesn't help me or you. And frankly, the number of knives that I've sold for this consignor over the year, I think I can count on one hand. And I've spent way too much time on the ones that I have sold. And I really don't enjoy when his name comes up in my text. So some business is too expensive to have. That's the message of this video, along with just kind of an update on how I do things and why. And for those of you wondering, PayPal has put up with me doing things this way for a lot of years, and I've actually had a couple conversations with them, and they still make a little bit of money, but they have no, they still make a little money because they hold on to my transfers for a few days. But they have absolutely nothing to do with arbitrating, so they have no human resources involved in my transactions. Is it sort of outside their normal model? Yeah. Have we talked about it, PayPal and I, and come to a working agreement? Yeah. And frankly, it is friends or family. If you don't trust me enough to be the guy with your knife in your hand before you buy it and give you an accurate representation of what it is, the knife you're buying from somebody that's not me, by the way, then you wouldn't regard me as a friend, would you? But if you do trust me enough to do that and do it the way I do it, then you might count me a friend, which kind of makes sense. So I think I've rambled long enough. Time to go sharpen some knives. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Remember, the word is sharp. I will talk to you soon.